What's going on, y'all? Gamers Goon here today with yet another Premier League predictions video here today. We have the week 4. Match week 4 is coming up fast on us. It feels like the season just started yesterday, but we're already into week 4. And we're starting week 4 off on Friday with a team that is currently 0-2. Down 6 points on the season. Luton Town going up against a team on the side of West Ham, and West Ham is actually second in the league right now with 7 points. West Ham's look really solid so far this season versus Luton Town on Friday. For this game, I'm going to be honest. Going into this game, if you looked at it before the season, I would probably have said this is going to be one of those opportunities for Luton Town to actually get their victory. I did not think West Ham was going to be solid, but they've looked good. They've looked good so far this season. West Ham, they beat Chelsea. They beat Brighton. I could see how you could beat Chelsea. I'm going to be honest. Chelsea has not impressed me much. Brighton, on the other hand, I think that's the big victory here because Brighton dominated Luton. They dominated Wolves. And then they got dominated by West Ham. So, by the principle of logic, you would assume West Ham would be able to get business done against the Luton because they've beat a team that already beat Luton pretty handily. And I think that's pretty fair to assume. Let's be honest. Luton has not looked good. They haven't looked good at all. They've only played 2 games, obviously. They're a game behind West Ham, but I think West Ham's going to win this game. Give me a 3-0 victory for West Ham, and let's get on into the Saturday slate with Sheffield United being the early game against Everton. Both teams fighting for their first victories of the season. Both these teams 0 points. Everton's bottom of the league currently. They've given up 6 points in 3 games. 6 goals in 3 games. Sheffield's only given up 3 goals. Well, they've only lost by 3 goals. But they've actually put points on the board. Everton has yet to score their first goal of the season. And I think we all knew Everton was going to be an iffy team this season at best. We knew that they would be towards the bottom of the league. They have not looked good. Everton has not looked good at all. So when it comes to Everton, I think that probably we should expect to see Sheffield United to win this game. Sheffield United, if you go look at them, they played close against Man City. They played close against Crystal Palace. They played close against Nottingham Forest. They've lost 3 games, obviously. They looked good against City last weekend. I think that this is just setting up perfectly for Sheffield United to get their first victory in the Premier League this season. So we're going to give a 1-0 victory to Sheffield United. But mark that up. Brentford versus Bournemouth. Brentford, they've been They obviously beat Fulham. They have 2 draws on the season. Bournemouth, on the other hand, they got the draw against West Ham, lost badly to both Liverpool and Tottenham. Liverpool, I'm not putting respect on their name just yet because they still look shaky in that midfield. But Tottenham, I think, is a really solid team. I think Tottenham is a legit team this season. They've looked great. But I think you got to take Brentford here. They got the draw out of Tottenham. Obviously, they got 2 guys up top that both have 2 goals already within the season, in Mbumbo and Wissa. Both of those guys have a combined 5 goals through 3 games. So I think the attack there on Brentford's side of things will help elevate the play there, and I think Brentford should be able to get this one done 2-0. Burnley versus Tottenham. Tough draw for Burnley. Burnley still has not won through 2 games. Them and Luton both are the only 2 teams that have played 2 games. Remember that because they had to postpone a game. Burnley's down 5 on the season, 5 points. They've scored their first goal of the season, but they've given up 6. They've conceded 6. They're averaging 3 a game. And I don't think going up against a Spurs team is the team that is going to help you bounce back. Because Spurs, you look at what they did so far this season, and they've just gone out and every single game put up 2 goals, but they've looked solid. They've looked solid. Madison's been a good pickup. Kulusevski's been good for them. Papi Sarr's been great. I mean, we've yet to see Son get started. We've yet to see Richarlison really get started. And if Son and Richarlison can start putting goals in the back of the net, they're going to be a scary team this season. They're going to be a real scary team this season. So I think this is probably the point of the season where this is a game you should win if you're Tottenham. But with both Son and Richarlison kind of struggling to get goals on the board so far, I think this would be a good time for one of those guys to get a goal here in this game. So I'm going to say that Tottenham win this one 3-0. Burnley can't give you anything. Sorry. Chelsea versus Nottingham Forest. I think this is going to be a good game. Obviously, Chelsea got the big win last week against Luton, a team they should beat. They should beat Luton. So don't get too excited. But then Nottingham Forest, obviously they lost last week to Man United by 1 goal. They beat Sheffield United this season. These two teams, I think, is going to be a good game. I could see this being a draw, but ultimately, I think that I'm going to give it to Chelsea here. They're playing at Stamford Bridge. I think we're going to win. I'm going to give it 2-1 Chelsea. Man City versus Fulham. Fulham, they got a draw last week out of Arsenal. And I think Man City kind of is similar to Arsenal, that their early season form hasn't looked that great. I mean, obviously they beat Burnley pretty bad to start off the season. Didn't think they were great in that game, but they won 3-0. Then they had the Newcastle game, 1-0. I thought that Newcastle had some chances there. And then Sheffield United did a great job at holding them for the longest period of time. I thought that was a game that they were going to go in and lose 4 or 5-0. But Sheffield United only lost by a goal, and it was a late goal there from Man City that really put them over the edge. But Fulham, a little bit different. They got a late equalizer last week. I think Fulham is one of those teams that could get a draw out of this game. I think they could get a draw out of this game, but it's hard to say with Man City that you expect a draw. So I'm going to go with Man City. I'm going to say 3-1. 3-1 Man City. And hopefully for Man City's sake, they get a bounce-back week, because last week I think was not a great week for them. I know they won. I know they got their 3 points. I know they got a victory. But I don't think it was a good week for them. They did not look great last week. And they almost only got a point out of it. Brighton versus Newcastle, a game I'm pretty excited for, but I might not need to be excited for it because Brighton got beat last week. But Newcastle, a team I thought was going to come in and do really good this season, they've scored 1 goal each in the last 2 games. Obviously, they started the season off hot against Villa, but Man City held them. Actually, they didn't score against Man City. They've scored 1 goal in the last 2 games. They did not score against Man City. They lost. And then they only scored 1 against Liverpool. We kind of talked about Liverpool. I don't think they're that good. They kind of lack a midfield there. Brighton, on the other hand, we kind of talked about them as well. They've got the 2 wins over 2 bottom feeders there, and Luton and Wolves. And then they got beat pretty handily by West Ham. But it's going to be interesting. I think both of these teams are still trying to figure out their early season form. Let's give it a draw. 2-2, Brighton and Newcastle draw. Sunday, the 3rd, we got the 2 early games. First with Crystal Palace and Wolves. And this one is a game that should be interesting because Wolves haven't been great, but they haven't looked as bad as I thought they would be. Obviously, they won last week against Everton. Not a huge accomplishment, but they did it. They scored a goal against Brighton. Obviously, Brighton is a team that I think should be beating teams like that. But then Brighton again lost against West Ham. So, I mean, make of that what you will. and they obviously lost week 1 off a controversial VAR decision on Onana from United. Then Crystal Palace, obviously, they've done their thing. They've got 4 points this season. They lost to Arsenal, but they did win against Sheffield, and they drew against Brentford, so there's 4 points right there. They've scored 2 goals all season through 3 games, so Crystal Palace needs a goal scorer. I know of one that might be getting sold today, and Balogun, but if you guys wanted to call, you should have gave us the money at Arsenal, but you didn't. You didn't call. You never came to call. Should have gave us the 45, 50 million we were looking for. But now you don't have a goal scorer, and the deadline's coming up quickly. Palace, you need to find a goal scorer. You need to find one quick. You need to find one quickly. But Palace Wolves, I think this will be a good game. I think it'll be a good fight. It's at Selhurst Park. Hard place to go in and win. Obviously, Arsenal did do it, but I think Crystal Palace is a team that should win this game. I'm going to give them a 2-1 win against Wolves. They should handle this game at home. Liverpool versus Villa. Liverpool, obviously, we kind of talked about how I think they've underwhelmed so far this season. But then you got Villa, who's currently 7th. But they beat Burnley, they beat Everton, and then they lost pretty badly to, week 1 to Newcastle. Liverpool, on the other hand, obviously they have got their points so far this season, and that is through a tie with Chelsea, and the Bournemouth win and the Newcastle win. And once again, Bournemouth's not a team I think is really that great. So those 3 points aren't something I'm looking at and saying, oh, Liverpool's in form. And then obviously with Newcastle, they've seemed to struggle so far this season. We thought they were going to be a lot better to start the season, but they haven't been. But Liverpool, I'm going to be honest, I don't think they're great. I know they're 4th right now in the standings, but 7 goals through the last 2 Premier League games for Villa. Obviously, they only got that first goal in week 1. But I think Liverpool, without the midfield really being all that great, I think if they don't make a move within the next few days before deadline day, they're going to have a long season ahead of them. I'm going to give this one to Villa. What do I want the score to be? I'm going to say 3-2. 3-2. Shout out to Darwin Núñez for getting points out of that game. And then the last game before the break, the last game before we go on international leave, is Arsenal versus Man United. Big game there for both sides of things. Man United, obviously, we think that they have had opportunities to look better. The Wolves game wasn't pretty. Obviously, Spurs made them look like jokes. Forest wasn't pretty, but they got the win. Same thing on the Arsenal side of things. And you know me, I'm an Arsenal fan, but it's kind of the same thing on the other side. Had complete control of the Forest game, gave up a goal when we shouldn't have gave up a goal. And gave up an 82nd minute goal to a sub. And then you got Palace. Obviously, we controlled most of that game. Unfortunately, we did get a red card. That kind of ruined the ending of that game, I think. I think we could have won by a couple more goals, maybe 2 or 3 goals in that game. And then the Fulham game was an absolute joke from us. I don't know what was going on. We were making mistakes. I think that the lineup was poor, and Mikel Arteta's decisions were poor. Outside of Fabio Vieira, I don't really think anybody had an outstanding game when it came to that Fulham game. Fabio Vieira, shout out to him. I voted for him for the man of the match. It ended up being Saka. But obviously with Saka, he was a factor as to why we lost or why we got a draw to that game. And don't get me wrong, big Saka fan, got a jersey on the way. But Saka needs he was part of the error there at the very beginning. Within the first minute, they gave up a goal. He's part of that error. So that cannot happen again. That cannot happen again. Trossard, he obviously, I felt bad for him because they started him. I thought he deserved it coming into the season because he had such a great preseason. They started him week 3, didn't have nearly the showing we'd hoped for. And then Nketiah came in, got his goal. Nketiah's been great. Nketiah, I don't see why he should lose the starting spot anytime soon. Jesus, obviously, he's coming back. He was getting fit. He did not play much. He came in the 90th minute. But if I'm Arteta, I would start Nketiah against United. I'm gonna be honest. I would start Nketiah against him. He's just been able to score for us this season so far. He's been one of the bright spots of the team. Obviously, Saka's been great. Besides that one mistake, it was one mistake with Saka. That's it. So don't get me wrong. It's not me saying Saka's a bad player. He literally has had one mistake all season. You'd like to see more out of Kai Havertz. Obviously, a lot of people have been talking about whether or not he was worth the money. It's time to show them that you're worth the money, Kai. It's time to show them you're worth the money. Obviously, had a lot of opportunities in that game last week to get some goals. All of them ended up coming up short. Declan Rice has been solid for us. Odegaard's been solid for us. Saliba has been great. And then in the rest of that back line, it's kind of been just hit or miss. Ben White's been one of the people I think that can pretty much say that their spot's secure in that back line. But Kivior started. I think that is definitely interchangeable with Ben White out on the wing back position. And then moving Gabriel back inside. I don't even know if Gabriel is going to be on the team come the end of the deadline. Obviously, Saudi Arabia is looking at purchasing him from Arsenal. I know we're looking at some potential replacements. I heard Mark Gahey from Crystal Palace. But Partey, I don't necessarily like him in the right back position, but I see why they're doing it. In the games, it's obvious why they're doing it because they're able to hold. If you look at last game, we were able to hold possession for about 70% of the time. That's because you have basically an extra midfielder there in Thomas Partey playing. But I really want to see Gabriel back in, and I don't think Partey's really offering. I get that we have the possession. I get that we have complete control of the game. But if you're giving a draw out to Fulham, not only that, if you let Fulham be in the lead for 70 minutes while you have the ball for 75% of the time, something's going wrong. The attack's not working. Something's not working. And then late in the game, obviously 2-1, able to get 2 quick goals there. And then you blow it again. You needed extra defenders there in the box. You never brought in Gabriel. It just didn't work. It just did not work. But for this game, Man United, obviously, because I said Man United's not been as good as we hoped. Then I got to talk about Arsenal the way I know how to talk about Arsenal because I've actually got to see the most I've seen of any team is Arsenal. So I got to call them out where they've failed so far this season. Unfortunately, they have failed this season, but it's going to be in the Emirates. Very hard to lose a game in the Emirates. I'm hoping we can get it done. But Man United, Arsenal, I'll give us a 2-1 victory. We should not be losing to a team that's struggling like Man United right now. We should not be losing, but we're struggling too, so we might draw it. But I don't think we'll lose. Hopefully not. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.